I was a corporate dropout and a college athlete, and that's kind of what led me down this path of hormonal imbalances.
And so when we don't process, at one point or another, your body's going to get your attention.
Just craziness. Like, the way I operated was so wild, and I look back at that now and I'm like, no wonder I was so messed up. That you can heal in a way that allows you to produce literally any result in your life if you choose it with absolute certainty.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast. My name is Michelle Dutro, and we are joined today by Chelsea McLeod. Now, let me tell you why I'm excited about this. I interview a lot of people. What are we, episode 150 now? So I've interviewed a lot of people over my time. I'm going to go on record for saying that she has, you can see for yourself, the most energy of anyone I've interviewed. And here's what I'm telling you. It came through in just a couple of little emails back and forth. I usually don't hear from people before I interview them. And this is somebody who is on her game, on point. I've watched several of her social media videos, which was a big reason why I had her here, is I love people who play full out. They show up. They're always on, ready to go. And just in the little bit of couple of seconds we had before I hit record, I was like, man, I did not make a mistake with this girl. So let me give you a little bit about her background before we bring her on. She is somebody who embodies what it truly means to transform not just your health, but your entire way of living. Chelsea is the founder of Healthy Hustle Method, where she helps high-achieving women finally break free from burnout, balance their hormones, heal their gut, and reclaim their energy without sacrificing their ambition. Very key. What makes Chelsea's story so powerful isn't just her expertise, but it's her authenticity. You're going to see that today. She's been in the trenches of corporate life, running at full speed until her body finally said enough. That wake-up call pushed her to face her own health struggles and ultimately create a system that empowers other women to listen to their bodies, set boundaries, and thrive in both health and business. She's built an incredible following online by showing up with honesty, vulnerability, and practical tools that actually work. She's proof that the real hustle isn't about doing more, it's about doing it differently in alignment with your body, your purpose, and your truth. Chelsea, did I get that accurate? Is that close to who you are and what you do?
Nailed it. I loved it.
All right. Beautiful. Before we launch here into your background and your story, is there anything that you think the audience should know about you that would be helpful before we get started?
I was a corporate dropout and a college athlete, and that's kind of what led me down this path of hormonal imbalances and different things that I noticed in my body that I wanted to change. And so for anyone who is kind of burning the candle at both ends, they're doing all the things, they're doing the workouts, they're trying it all. Like, I hear you, I see you, and I have some answers for you.
Beautiful. Okay, let's go back. So college life was that, and most people that go to college don't also play a sport. So that's a little extra, right? So would you say that's when things started as far as pushing the limits and kind of running your body, maybe, I don't know if we would say harder than design, but really pushing the limits than just continuing to work life? But did that start in college, or was college life what you would still consider balanced?
College is when I started seeing symptoms. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, there was just the stress of being at, a school that required very demanding amounts of my time. It was a very competitive school, and I was also playing college field hockey. So what I think I can't not mention, though, is that's also the time where I had a debilitating family emergency. And so when I was 18, I had a brother who had a really serious traumatic brain injury from a football accident. And so I got that call on like night 3 of my freshman year. And that's the first night I stopped sleeping. And that's when I was on a plane back to Boston from Tennessee, every couple weeks, because we didn't know if he was going to survive, and he was getting a bunch of brain surgeries. And so I think what I see with a lot of my clients and what I saw with myself is oftentimes it's stress. It's the demands of work, school, insert whatever you have there. But it's also the demands on your physical body. Like, maybe you are working out a lot. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're just not eating the right things, and that's stress on your physical body. But there's also a lot of women who experience loss. Maybe they have a divorce, they lose a parent, they lose a child, they have a miscarriage. And so oftentimes it's kind of coupled with these deeper underlying emotional imbalances that are causing your body to look or feel a certain way.
Agreed. And I think that entire myriad of what you just listed are things that as women, we just deal with, because we have to, right? We have expectations at work and at home and demands that don't allow us time to sit with what am I feeling and what's going on. And so when we don't process, at one point or another, your body's going to get your attention. So let's walk forward then of your body getting more of your attention. Let's walk into corporate life and what was going on then that really was okay, enough is enough. What happened?
I was running myself into the ground, which I'm sure most people can relate to. It's like I started as an associate where I was just grinding every single day. I was in the office at 8 p.m. I was leaving at 7 p.m. because I didn't want to look like a slacker. I was the last one to leave. I was bringing my laptop home, cracking it open, working on campaigns because I was in a digital e-commerce role. And so the store never closes, so neither do we. And so on top of that, I was doing CrossFit every day. I was doing multiple spin classes because I didn't want to get fat, because plot twist, when you have a cortisol issue or hormonal imbalance, like you have a lot of cravings. You tend to overeat at night because your nervous system is totally dysregulated. And then the next day you do 2 spin classes to make up for it. And so I was in this hamster wheel of chronic stress. I wasn't sleeping. I was overperforming. I was not ever in nature or outside. I was commuting an hour each way and I was just running myself into the ground. But because I was in fight or flight, I was in, survival mode, I didn't feel the fatigue or the drag yet. Like I always felt wired and tired, but I was still able to keep up until I couldn't. And what that looked like for me was just completely disrupted sleep, exhaustion, irritability. I was losing my hair. And this doesn't show up for everyone, but for a lot of women who are in these big roles, it's like they have a collection of hormonal symptoms that are basically waving the flag and be like, hey, if you don't slow down, we're going to slow you down for you. And so what I see is a lot of clients who maybe start to see a couple of those symptoms crop up. And a lot of the time it has to do with weight gain. And all of a sudden their pants don't zip. And then they contact me because they're like, this is not the body I recognize. I don't want this to become a bigger problem. Let's get ahead of this problem, fix my hormones, and move forward.
So how old were you and what happened when there was a life change for you?
The life change was forced for me. COVID happened. I was living in Sydney, Australia. I was working for Adidas at the time, and suddenly we were forced to stay home. Australia had some of the most strict COVID lockdown laws in all of the world. And so I couldn't leave my house for more than an hour a day for months. And this forced me to feel my feelings. It forced me to prep my food at home. I couldn't be doing Uber Eats anymore. That was not a thing. I was not commuting. I was not in back-to-back meetings all day. And that's where my body started to regulate, because I was working with a naturopath at the time who helped me do this. And then I remember the first night I went to sleep at 10 p.m. and woke up at 5:30 a.m. absolutely energized. And this is coming from the girl who would go to sleep at midnight and usually knock myself out with NyQuil or some kind of sleeping pill and then wake up at 7:15, tornado around my house like a chicken with my head cut off for 20 minutes, and leave the house with like 2 beverages in hand, having not eaten. I'm like eating on the road. I'm sitting in traffic. I'm listening to a podcast on 2x speed like a crackhead. Just craziness. Like the way I operated was so wild. And I look back at that now and I'm like, no wonder I was so messed up. No wonder I was always bloated. Like, this is ridiculous. And so this forced me into a different way of operating that really rung a bell for me and made me see that there's a different way to live my life.
So besides the sleep, talk us through some changes when life was forced upon you to slow down, which it happened for all of us everywhere in the world. And it impacted everybody, well, but it impacted people differently, right? So what happened for you, for other people, it was overeating and overdrinking. I mean, everybody took that time down a different path. And so specific for you, that time to slow down and listen to yourself at regular speed, not even listening to yourself at 2x speed, let alone a podcast, but that time of listening to yourself, what were the things that you first said? Because I think people listening are going, okay, where did she start? Because I don't know where to start, and I don't know what the big boulders are versus the little rocks. I should probably take care of the things that are going to make the biggest difference. You said you finally got to sleep, right? That's a big one for most people. But what are some of the big things that you did in the beginning that you know made a massive difference?
we have to start with food, right? No, and I mean, when we talk about anything hormonal imbalance related, we have to start with what we put on our plate. And for me, that looked like making swaps for highly processed food. And that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect and we can't enjoy I call them whole foods and soul foods. It's like we can never cut out soul foods. Like I still eat birthday cake. I eat everything. There's nothing I don't eat. It's just I have a system for how to eat it now. So it was, removing in the short term, I removed things like heavy cream and heavy dairy, and it made a huge difference in my digestion. I got blue light blocking glasses and used those after dark if I was doing any kind of work. And I took some different supplements to calm my nervous system so I could actually fall asleep and wake up feeling rested. I did things like moving coffee after breakfast, which makes a really big difference, and walking after meals because, I had PCOS. I was type 2 diabetic, even though I was a healthy 28-year-old woman. And so starting to make these little like micro shifts are what I was able to implement and actually start seeing, as you say, like we always have to start with the boulders before the pebbles, because we need to find the most high impact habits that are going to produce a result quickly to keep us motivated.
So what do you find in the clients that you work with? Where does the resistance show up? Because it does in all of us, right? Oh, that's too much. I can't do that. That won't work for me. Or I've tried everything and nothing works. So let's walk through what you've seen in the psychology of resistance. And, it does come back to maybe it's earlier trauma, emotional connection, how we see ourselves, the grace that we are not willing to give ourselves. So what are some of the things that you've seen in folks, and what are the things that you've done to help people pass that?
Because I work with a specific type of woman, I often see the same stuff come up over and over again. This is probably very familiar to you, Michelle, but it's perfectionism. It's, I'm either all in or I'm all out. And I'm like, okay, Susan, how is that working for you? And they're like, well, I have a muffin top. My relationship is hanging on by a thread. I have crazy cravings. I'm not sleeping. And I'm like, okay, so we can't be perfectionists. It's just not going to work. And I just did a podcast on this the other day, but it's like, if you were on a plane and you hit some turbulence, is the captain going to come on and be like, okay, we're just going to crash the plane into the ocean and we're going to live in the ocean now? It's like, no, we're going to just get back on track. We have to increase our bounce back rate. So that's the time that it takes from the moment we fall down till we decide we're going to get back up. So we're not going to stay down here and wallow for a day. Okay, we have pizza for lunch. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. Absolute disaster. I'm just a piece of crap. Like, I don't deserve anything. I'm just going to eat everything for the rest of the day. It's like, no, that's not how this works. We need to be less dramatic, Susan. We need to actually learn how to course correct when there's just these little blips, because we can't expect perfection. That's not a thing. And it's actually a really clever self-sabotage pattern that high-performing women use to keep them stuck. And so a lot of that resistance, as you're talking about, goes back to a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment that they experienced as a kid. It's like, for a lot of these women, they were criticized by their moms. Their bodies were scrutinized by someone they grew up with. Maybe they were a little bit of a social outcast in middle school. Like, there's always a reason, and we have to figure out, like, how old does this feeling feel in your body? Because it's starting to recreate these patterns of perfection as it is now. So if we can understand where that came from and we can really neutralize it and figure out why we're in this cycle in the first place, we can start to shift it and actually create solutions. And that's what women don't get in therapy, right? Like, they're feeling their feelings, which is great. We need to feel the feeling. But until we have a solution for how to move forward and solve the problems that we say we have, women just spin their wheels.
Right. So, I like what you're saying here about, especially around self-sabotage and staying stuck, and perfectionism is a big one, right? We beat ourselves up and then we just are in this crazy 8 over and over and over again. So for that person, the real high achiever, vulnerability is challenging. Showing ourselves grace is hard. So for these types of attributes, were these things that you had to work on because you're a high achiever? I mean, you described yourself perfectly from college to the crazy way of life that you had. Everything was go, 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 and everything was going to be the best, and it was going to be right now, or it was going to be yesterday. So there had to be not just behavior shift, but before behavior can change, mindset does. So what were some, specifically for you, I know COVID forced a lot of that on you, but COVID's now passed and you could have gone back to a crazy way of life. You chose not to. So something within your mindset shifted. What were those shifts that you saw within you that you now can help and translate for other people as well?
We talk all about self-compassion and self-love, but I think people don't really know what that means. But what that looked like for me was actually loving myself enough to change and loving myself enough to slow down and actually decide that things like rest are a requirement, not a reward. And so for me, it was like some of the patterns that showed up for me are, and still continue to be, this is not perfect. Like I'm still learning as well, just like my clients, but it's like hanging my worth on my output and how much I'm doing and how much I'm achieving. And you know, there's benefits of that. Like it got me to a certain place, but there's also drawbacks of that. And that's the reason why I was having symptoms in the first place. And so for me, repatterning that was a really big part of my process, because it always looked like doing the most, doing the workout with the highest calorie burn, getting the accolades. You know, how much can I cram my calendar this weekend? How many people can I see? And it was all just like more, do more, say more, impress more. And it was just like this kind of constant attempt of trying. Like I was just trying so hard all the time. And so that was a really big underlying pattern that I got to shift.
So what is success to you now? If it's not data driven, it's not the metrics up on the CrossFit board, how do you define success now at the end of the day, looking back?
It's more of a feeling. Like I've just gotten so addicted to feeling good that I protect that feeling at all costs. And so that's what I do with a lot of clients. It's like we have to become obsessed with feeling a certain way and doing what's required to help us stay in that energy. And I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like there comes a point where your brain is just firing on all cylinders, you're getting your sleep, you're taking care of yourself, and you're like, oh, this is what self-love actually means. I didn't understand. I thought it was just, you know, wearing white underwear and like chanting in front of a mirror that I love you, putting your hand, like, no, it's loving yourself enough to change and loving yourself enough to take action to support yourself.
And, you know, I agree with you. I think this is a difficult one for women, is what self-care looks like. I know a lot of people that when things click is they would say, I used to go to yoga as one more thing to do, not as it was time for me to connect with me. And it's a completely different perspective, not only just on how you're spending your yoga class, but on how you're spending your time. Right. And so for you, I know lifestyle is a very important thing. It's not just nutrition or just this or just that. It's looking at the whole of your life. So as you look at the whole of your life and you look at what are areas now that still could be tweaked, or, you know, looking forward that I still am saying, hey, this is another area that I think that would improve the overall of my life. What are those things for you, for somebody who's spent a great deal of time looking at this and mastering this? What are some of those, you know, future Chelsea goals, if you will?
There's always a gap, right, Michelle?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm still working on reprogramming some of those underlying beliefs where it's like, can I just follow the protocol that I give clients, which is phone away 1 hour before bedtime, and phone isn't touched until 1 hour after you wake up. Like, it's not that hard, but I am not complying, Michelle. I'm not complying because I want to know who's talking to me. I want to know what my clients are saying. I want to know how many social media likes I got. And so there's still this little bit of like a dopamine addiction that I'm working through. And that shows up as things like cravings as well for me sometimes. And it's like, okay, I'm coaching all these women on how to deal with their cravings, but then I'm like, oh my God, at 2 p.m., like, give me something. So that's the biggest growth edge for me. I think I'm also working on self-worth of like, okay, what does self-worth actually look like? And I'm a single girly. Like, I have been single for a while. I think I'm ready to meet a soulmate. And it's like, in order to do that, there's a certain level of self-love that I get to master as the next step in my evolvement, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have always loved the line. Some people get crazy offended. I've almost been punched in the face several times for this one, but that you make the amount of money you think you are worth, and you are in the relationship you feel you deserve.
It's so true.
But it is. And so how we view ourselves and our place in this world is everything. It's going to dictate all of your outcomes. And so if there is a struggle somewhere, that's probably a good place to start, is what's going on with how I see me and why, right? And then find somebody to work with that's gonna help you through that. So speaking of that, how do people work with you? What do your programs look like? If somebody was listening to this podcast thinking, I want to know more about Chelsea, what are her programs? Who are they for? You know, what does your world look like when somebody gives you a phone call and says, hey, can you help me?
I have a 6-month hormone reset method. It's really for those women who want rapid results. They want the cheat codes to basically release weight using hormone balancing strategies, but it's holistic, right? And so they come in because they want to lose weight. Maybe they want to resolve something like hair loss, skin issues, gut issues. But there's oftentimes a weight element to that. Maybe it's 10 pounds that hasn't shifted. Maybe it's a woman going through menopause who suddenly doesn't feel or look the way she wants to. Or maybe it's a new mom who is having trouble rebalancing after baby and finding her purpose, but also not feeling at home in her body. So that's where we get to do some of the mindset work and some of the physical work. So I have a couple programs for women like that are a little bit longer term, because it's truly for women who are invested in creating results. Like they want to be able to skip the line a little bit. They want the protocols, they want the accountability to get them there as fast as possible. And then I have it's like a little 7-day hormone reset, kind of like a mini challenge, just to give you, as you say, like the boulders that are going to help produce a result quickly, so that you can actually feel like this could work for you.
And in your 6-month program, is that group coaching, one-on-one coaching, online courses? What does that look like?
It is a small group program, so very high touch. And then I do have, VIP one-on-one clients who work directly with me as well.
Okay, perfect. And so again, let's go back to this person who says, well, I've tried something just like that and that didn't work. Because I want, for everybody listening that has that in their head, you're listening to this for a reason, right? You tripped across this somehow. And I know that, the line that when the student is ready, the teacher will come, is maybe now is the time to be ready, right? That you are worth it. And I think a lot of these things do come back to self-worth. So if you were to deliver a message out there to somebody who's feeling a little resistance, feeling maybe they're not worth it, from what you've gone through, from the women you've worked with, if you were directly to talk to that gal, what is something you would say to her that would maybe persuade her a little bit that, in fact, yes, she is worth it? Don't quit now.
I think it's so hard for women who are in high performing roles and who are doing the most to, number one, admit that they need help. Because a lot of the time they're like, I could figure this out on myself. And they're using ChatGPT. Maybe they're trying GLP-1. Maybe they're just spinning. And it's like, it's not working. So sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves about, like, what's the gap between where I am and where I want to go? Like, how much weight am I trying to shift? What kind of result am I trying to produce? Because if you can get clear on the result you're trying to make, it's a lot easier to really map out the steps to get there. And so, you can make the choice to keep spinning, or you can make the choice to heal. And that's what I'm really interested in helping women do, because they're never going to feel ready. Like, you will never feel ready for something like this, right? Like, it's always going to be uncomfortable, because change is uncomfortable anytime. I mean, as well as I do, it's like, it's always going to feel sticky, but sometimes you have to start before you're ready, and stop waiting for January 1st. Stop waiting for a good time, because the reality is there's never a good time. And if you can master change during a hectic time, but with like the structures and supports in place to do it, you're at such a greater likelihood of succeeding than if you just keep slugging it out on your own.
Right. Exactly. And I'm assuming you meet people where they are. So wherever your diet currently is, whatever your exercise regime currently is, you're picking up from that place and going. And then your program, is it only certain times a year, or could somebody literally just reach out to you today?
They could reach out to me today, and I'll make a recommendation. There's a couple of different program suites. I don't want to sell someone a high ticket program if that's not what they need, right? Some women need it, some don't. So for me, it's really important to understand what their goals are, what kind of accountability levels they need, to really make the best recommendation for them.
Perfect. And if somebody wants to reach out to you to explore all of the options and learn more about you, what are the best ways to find you?
On Instagram at Healthy with Chels. And I have a couple of resources on there, just a little freebie of ways to start. What are those little boulders that you can start implementing today? I have people message me all the time on Instagram who are like, oh my God, I did what you said in your ebook and I've lost 5 pounds in the last 2 weeks. And I'm like, yes, it's working, obviously. But that's a great place to start. That's on my Instagram. And then I also have a podcast called It's Not You, It's Your Hormones. That just has a lot of tips and it's funny.
Perfect. I will include those links in the show notes so that if you're out on a walk or driving, listening to us at 2x speed, you can just click on that later when you're back at home. Not a worry at all. And Chelsea, in closing, and I know you have a fabulous answer for this, I ask every guest the exact same question, which is, what is one thing that you absolutely believe to be true?
That you can heal in a way that allows you to produce literally any result in your life if you choose it with absolute certainty.
That is a great ending. And I'll tell you, I believe everybody should have a coach or mentor in their life. But truly, I wish I would have a long, long time ago. Hit rewind, about 20 seconds worth, and listen to what Chelsea just said again, because it was said with certainty and conviction. And if you're working with a coach, you better be working with somebody who has certainty and conviction in what they're saying, in what they offer, because that is going to translate. And so I love that. I knew I would love your energy. I love your energy. And you are somebody that women need in their corner, period, end of story. So I hope that folks reach out to you. Like I said, this will all be in show notes. And check out our Instagram, everybody. Jump over there. If you need some energy infused in your day, look no further. So this is your gal. So thank you, Chelsea, truly, for your time and your expertise and your encouragement for women. This is sometimes the shot in the arm that gals need to say, you know what, I'm worth it, and maybe now's the time. So thank you for all of that.
Thanks, Michelle. It was so good to see you. And I feel exactly the same about you. I mean, I think women need mentors like you who, I mean, I think the truth just sounds different. And what I hope for all women is that they can just see through some of the smoke and mirrors in the online coaching, mentorship, whatever world, and find people who are speaking the truth and doing good work.
Yep. Beautiful. Beautifully said. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Game Changer podcast. Please click subscribe so that you don't miss any shows like this. And like I said, check out show notes and don't miss another word of Chelsea. Thanks for being here.